Michelle Lupton here today with a video for a very special event. I'm joining in with Tahira Archia's Christmas Advent Calendar Extravaganza. So she invited me to join in today, and the sponsor today is none other than Newton's Nook. So I have this stamp set from Newton's Nook, which is called Beautiful Baubles, and the first time I saw this set, I thought immediately that I wanted to use this technique with it, which is pretty much using Emboss Resist. But using Emboss Resist with my Zig Clean Colour Real brush markers. So what I'm doing is I've taken a piece of Canson watercolour paper and I covered it with some of my powder tool, and so basically to remove any static, so that the embossing powder would only stick where I wanted it to stick on the Versamark ink that I'm stamping now. And then I'm just stamping these 3 baubles. Now, you might have noticed that I actually already added the embossing powder to the largest one. That's because just to get the placement right, it is so much easier to see once you've added the embossing powder. It's almost impossible to see these baubles once you've just stamped with the Versamark. So if I add the embossing powder, it just makes it easier to get the placement right. So I've placed these 3 baubles, added my white Hero Arts embossing powder, and just scooping the rest of it back into my little container, and now I'm going to heat set it. Now there's lots and lots of heat setting and drying involved in this card, so you'll thank me for actually removing all of the use of the heat tool, because it took ages. So now I'm just choosing my Zig markers that I want to use, and this actually took quite a while because I really didn't know what colours I wanted to use. I was thinking sort of reds and purples and sort of maroony colours, but I remembered that I once made a card with one of the Zig markers, and I can't even remember which one it is, but it was a dark red colour, but when you add water it goes this pink, and I remembered that it actually stained the white embossing that I'd done on that particular card. So I decided to stick with my favourite Zig colours, which are the blues and the sort of aqua greens. So I just sort of scribbled in various different regions, sort of sticking into the areas that are sort of designated by the pattern on these baubles in the 2 different Zig colours. And then I added some water. Now I'm actually going around the edge of the baubles to give a bit more colour to the background with a very pale blue Zig. I also added a tiny little bit of grey to the little, I don't even know what it's called. What's the little thing, the attachment point at the top of a bauble where the string attaches to? I'm fairly sure it has a name. I just don't know what it is. Anyway, that thingamy-bob on the top, because I wanted it to look a bit silver, so I added some grey. And I'm going to add some shine a little bit later on. So again, with the spraying of the water, now I found with the Zigs, if I spray with the water fairly close, which I have done in this case, sometimes you get sort of back spray. So you might get a little bit of colour going outside the region where you actually put it in the first place. And that's perfectly fine, in my opinion, because I wanted the background to have just a little bit of colour. You can see I'm removing a little bit of the colour there, but I'm going to add some more back in of the pale blue, just to sort of give these baubles somewhere in space to lie, so they're not just sort of floating in the middle of nowhere. So they've actually got a background up against them. So here I've just scribbled the colour onto my craft mat, and I'm just adding it in particular places where I'd removed some, where I had too much water, and again with the heat tool. So in this instance, I decided there were some bits that were just not dark enough on the actual baubles, so I'm moving some of the colour around. I'm not actually adding any colour at this stage, just moving around what was already there with a water brush. Okay, so now I'm adding some Wink of Stella. In my opinion, the card's not really complete unless it's got either some shimmer or some shine or some glitter, or preferably all 3, really. So I'm adding some Wink of Stella all over the baubles on this card at the moment. I'm going to add some more shine in various different ways shortly. But I was quite happy with that. Now, at this point, I was actually talking to my niece. She was over today because she has tonsillitis, so she's not very well. And she was coming in and watching me make this card. And I got to this point, and two things went wrong. One, my silver pen decided to give up the ghost. And two, I realised that my rulers are actually propping up my iPhone taking the video right now. So I had to actually dig out my old Mathomat. I don't know if people overseas have Mathomats. I think it's an Australian thing. Anyway, I've had one since I was in, I think, grade 6, I think. So anyway, I had to pull it out. Now, I'm stamping my sentiment, which is from the Mama Elephant set. I think it's called Merry Greetings, I think. Anyway, I'll list that in my blog post. And I'm stamping it in VersaFine Onyx Black ink because I actually wanted to do a little bit more spraying of some shimmer and shine over the top of this, still to come. So I wanted to make sure that the ink would not bleed, but I also wanted to make sure that the sentiment was nice and dark and crisp. So in my opinion, VersaFine Onyx Black is the best for that. But I did make sure, I'm going to show you in just a minute, did make sure that I heat set that sentiment just to double check and double make sure that it is nice and dry and wasn't going to run when I added a bit more water. Now you can see I've grabbed a Hero Arts note card in a sort of dark blue colour to be my card base. Here I'm heat setting the sentiment. And now I'm adding some more shine. So this is just a bottle with some Perfect Pearls powder mixed with water. It used to be Perfect Pearls Mist, which I'm not quite sure if it has water or some other kind of solvent in it. Anyway, mine ran out. I refilled it with water and Perfect Pearls powder. And I just sprayed all over. So this whole front of the card is extra shimmery, but the baubles still have that extra shine from the Wink of Stella. Now I'm adding some little bows to the top of the strings where the baubles are attached, and I realised after I'd done this that there is actually a stamp in the Newton's Nook stamp set that has a little bow to go on top of the baubles, but I really wanted it to match the strings that I'd already drawn in this sort of little glimmer pen that I used, Jelly Roll pen. So I had to do it in that colour anyway. Alright, so now I've got some fun foam that I've cut to size so that I can layer it up underneath this panel on my card. So I'm adding lots and lots of adhesive so it's not going to go anywhere, and also to help flatten out the warping that had happened, because I added so much water to this watercolour panel. There was some warping when I heat set it. So the fun foam helps it to sort of stay put and not follow that warp. Now the last little step that I'm doing here, I'm still adding more shine. So I'm using that Jelly Roll pen to add some sort of faux stitching lines around the panel on the blue card base, and I'm also adding some shine with some sequins. And as always, it took me ages to figure out where to put them, but eventually they went on. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the card, and I hope you follow along with Tahira's Advent Calendar Extravaganza. Thanks for watching. Bye!